Thank you. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Ben Gardiner and my connection with the auxiliary and what made me consider asking him to speak is that any of us who boat on the lakes are familiar with this, have had some encounter of the best sort with the auxiliary and the wonderful services they provide. I took a course on boating safety from them and found it probably one of the best weekends I'd ever spent from an instructional standpoint. So I have had various ways I've interacted with the Coast Guard, and I am a supporter of them at a national level. So it seemed natural to have our local representative tell us about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Ben, you'll need to unmute and you're up next. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mark. And it's great to be here. I appreciate being invited. And I know we have a limited amount of time, which is difficult to me because I get a little bit long-winded when it comes to organizations that I'm very passionate about. I am very passionate about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I had obviously served in other branches of the military wearing different colored uniforms. And this is now my 5th year with the auxiliary. And it's just a great bunch of people. And I continually learn every day about what we do and the managed services, and seeing us on the lake with our patrols and so on and so forth is only just one of the very, very important things that we do. We are an official branch of the U.S. Coast Guard. We are a civilian branch, if you will. And we are fully integrated into their operations. We do not perform any of the tactical or law enforcement or military type operations where, and they have an increasing role in terms of the of their mission in terms of drug interdiction and military support and so on and so forth. And they're still expected to go out in all kinds of weather and perform search and rescue functions and so on and so forth. So we're happy to be part of them and fully integrated. In fact, our integration into Coast Guard operations has only gotten bigger since 9/11. And so we act as a force multiplier for them. So if you'd like to make me the presenter, I have a PowerPoint and a video and so on and so forth. And I'm sorry if this is gonna appear like a recruiting talk for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, which it is partially, but I do want to acquaint you with the many numerous important functions the Coast Guard Auxiliary does perform. So
Ben, you are up as the holding the entire screen. So if you want to start sharing your screen,
yep.
It's ready to go.
Very good. Fantastic. There's my wife outside of Tibbetts Point Lighthouse a few years back. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
and your slides are on the left, so go ahead and start the presentation.
Okay, and that's a view of our flotilla headquarters out on the point and on Inlet Point and so on Old Taconic Boulevard. I think probably most of you are familiar where we're located. We're located just before you get to the Boatyard Grill and so on. When people can't find us, I can usually say the Boatyard Grill or Finger Lakes Marine Services, and they know where we are. But we've been there for quite a while, and I'll talk about that as we go on. And again, we are civilian component, and I wear a uniform that looks very similar to what the Coast Guard wears, but understand that the rank you see on my shoulders is a badge of my elected position, which is Flotilla Commander. So we're not quite as military as I thought when we first joined, but we're not the Army, thank God. So that's a good thing. That's where I came from. That's where I came from, by the way. I'd like to start with a little bit of video down the line. This is a listing, by the way, of our flotilla staff officers and so on. And this just gives you a little bit of an idea of the many things that we do. And one thing that I'm going to do with this PowerPoint is I have some slides, or the complete slide set from it, converted over to PDF, and it's less than one megabyte. So I'll make that available to Mark. And if you want to pass that on to any of your members, please do, because there's communication links and there's video links and so on that may be of some value to you. And naturally, we'd like to hope maybe some of you would consider joining us, because we are very much a volunteer organization. We're not paid, but there's not one of us that's signed on expecting a paycheck. And the reward we get is being able to interact with the boating public and the U.S. Coast Guard and this great bunch of people we got on board. And we do have a fantastic group. We have about 37 members in our flotilla. We are the biggest flotilla membership-wise in our Division 2. And we like to say most active one. And I was very interested to hear some of the discussion on COVID and so on. COVID impacted the Coast Guard greatly. And really, for most of the regular activities in the auxiliary and so on and so forth, we're now just ramping up to our normal levels. Obviously, the Coast Guard has very many emergency functions, law enforcement functions. They had to go on, and the Coast Guard had to figure out how to do that while keeping their workforce safe. So anyway, you may know some of these folks. Now I'm going to start with a short recruiting video that one of our former members put together a couple of years ago, and it's really kind of cool. So bear with me on that. You see it okay?
Yes. No sound, that's all. We don't have
Can't hear-
sound.
Can't hear the sound, I'm sorry.
Ken, do you want to chime in about how to get sound? You seem to know how to do it.
Yeah, we can pause it.
Ken?
See here.
Ken, you know the trick for sound?
I don't know where Ken is, but the trick is you got to enable sound before you share your screen.
Okay,
So you might want to stop sharing your screen.
okay.
And
there's
then-
a little checkbox at the lower left that says with sound, I think. So if you go to share screen,
Yeah.
there'll be a little tick box to say with sound.
Okay, let me try that. I never knew that. Share sound. We're back. I'm going to start that over again. It's fairly short anyway. That boat right there, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
That vessel right there was the prototype steel boat procured by the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard, around 1941, just before the war got rolling. And this was going to be the model for motor lifeboats, for the Coast Guard. But then the war came along, and then they couldn't afford the steel, so the Coast Guard basically ran wooden boats the whole war. So this is owned by one of our members, our Vice Commander, John Freeman, and he's in the process of having it returned to its original shape and format. And that cabin right there is not original. They basically had a canvas top that went over it and so on and so forth. So we're really excited about that. And it'll be getting some showing and visibility, hopefully, around the area. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, here we go. Sound?
Yes, it's there.
There you go. Thanks for teaching me something new. Okay, that video always gets me cranked up.
Great video.
Thank you very much. He did a beautiful job on it. Anyway, Mark wanted me to kind of relate a little bit of the history of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and I'll try to do that, making a short story long, if I can, or making a long story short, excuse me. And Coast Guard Auxiliary was officially established in 1939 by an act of Congress, and at that time it was called the Coast Guard Reserve, but it was primarily made up of civilian volunteers that took their own vessels out to patrol and maintain safety and do other kinds of functions and so on and so forth. And to that effect, we still do it the same way, because all the vessels you saw there are owned by members of this flotilla, and they have to pass some fairly rigorous standards in terms of having equipment and being equipped for what the Coast Guard expects. And then they become what we call a vessel facility, which can be used under orders on Coast Guard auxiliary business. Now, any of you that own boats, and I'm sure there's quite a few of you there that do, realize that they cost a lot of money to run. The Coast Guard does make every effort to be fair with us in terms of reimbursing us for fuel and other expenses, but it's still quite a thing for the individual members and so on. And the Coast Guard's got units throughout the country in all 50 states and in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, that is, in Puerto Rico and the other territories. And we are, since post 9/11, we are a branch, the Coast Guard is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security, reporting to the Secretary. And of course, we as a branch of the Coast Guard report to the Commandant of the Coast Guard. We are organized in terms of our units in 4 levels, starting at the lowest level, which is the flotilla level, which is us. And obviously that's where the work gets done. But we report to a division headquarters, which is headquartered in the Syracuse area, in our district, which is District 9 ER, which is headquartered in Cleveland. And then we also report to a national commodore, and who is a member of our organization. And of course, at the district level, it's a kind of a split reporting in the fact that we report to the Coast Guard officials, but they report to actual active duty Coast Guard people and the director of the auxiliary and so on. The Reserve Act was passed, as I say, the auxiliary was formed in 39. In 1941, the act, the Reserve Act, was amended to designate the auxiliary as the auxiliary, which would be the civilian section, and then the military branch, an actual military reserve, was developed at that time also. During the war, there was 50,000 members that joined the war effort, and of course, we obviously served on the home front. And today, we're approximately 21,000 members serving our nation out of 793 local units, contributing 3.8 million hours in support of the Coast Guard and so on. We operate an average 1,800 vessels, all privately owned, 160 aircraft, all privately owned, and 1,400 radio facilities. Our motto is Semper Paratus, always ready, since 1939. This shows you the district locations, and of course, obviously, we are located here. And our 21,000 Coast Guard auxiliary members are a tremendous force multiplier. The Coast Guard's active duty strength is around 54,000, and they've got, I think, about 7,000 military reservists. And considering their mission, that's a tiny amount. So we have a very close relationship with the active duty Coast Guard, and they depend on us greatly. Cayuga Lake, for example, Ithaca, it's part of the New York State Canal System, so it is Coast Guard water. However, the Canal Corporation has jurisdiction over it, but the Coast Guard does too. But the Coast Guard station we report to is in Oswego, and that's over a 2-hour drive by car just to get there. So it takes longer to get boats down here too. So most of what the mission that the Coast Guard would perform, say on Lake Ontario, other than the law enforcement tactical mission, we take care of. And I think we do a good job. let's see, Flotilla 22 history. The north end of Inland Island was once known as Coast Guard Point. Does that anybody remember that? Going back a little while. And as we talked about, the Reserve Act, which established the auxiliary, was passed in 1939. And by 1941, the reserve units were redesignated as the auxiliary. And one of the first auxiliary groups to stand up was in Ithaca. And concerned yachtsmen and other boat owners met in Ithaca the first time. And the Ithaca Coast Guard Auxiliary received their charter on May 2nd, 1942 as Flotilla 22 under the 22nd Naval District. One of its first assignments was to assist the Coast Guard and so on in issuing ID cards to people that had business to be within 500 feet of the shipping facilities. Ithaca had a barge canal terminal at the time. So making sure that spies and saboteurs and so on stayed out of the area was pretty important. It was a very important mission. Over the course of the war, they issued around 1,300 ID cards. Auxiliary was downsized after the war, and this flotilla bounced around from location to location until in 1969, the New York State Conservation Department, now the Department of Environmental Conservation, offered us the use of the old Humble Oil building at 508 Old Taconic, and we've been there ever since. And it's one of the demands on our organization is to maintain the building because the state doesn't provide us any money for it, nor does the Coast Guard. So it's rather a challenge. We while we're in uniform, we can't ask for money, but we do have a not-for-profit corporation which supports us by maintaining the building in our patrol facility. So had many adventures, many challenges, and many victories for Flotilla 22 out of that location. And when we're down there operating, please stop in and see us. Glad to see you anytime. And if you'd like to, have a tour or something like that, get a hold of me. My contact information is within this presentation. I see how the performance goes, and we'd love to have a visit from you. Our cornerstone missions, primarily, if you wanted to break them up into 4 areas: public education, marine operations, both water and air operations, because we have Coast Guard auxiliary pilots, not here, but around the countryside, vessel examination, and fellowship. Now, the other ones are quite straightforward. Fellowship is one that the Coast Guard auxiliary and the Coast Guard values, and that's occasionally stopping and having a picnic and rewarding our people by identifying them with awards and so on and so forth. Very important situation. And it's a very much a family organization, family-oriented organization, and we are always looking for new members. We've been fortunate, even in the throes of COVID, that we've been able to put on 6 or 8 new members. We've lost a few too. Obviously, people retire. Our average age has got to be about 70 or so, probably. I'm one of the young whippersnappers, I guess. But to accomplish our mission, we're obviously safety and security patrols, search and rescue, which was a big deal. Often we're out on patrol and we'll run across a vessel that's in trouble. And of course, we can't radio Oswego for help. We call them on the cell phone, but we do work closely with Tompkins County and the other local emergency agencies in this area. And we're not supposed to, none of us are supposed to compete with the private sector in terms of people that are paid to do this for a living. But there's a situation where it comes up where a boat's going to be in trouble and we got to tow them in. So we have to train constantly for those kind of missions. We're obviously involved with mass casualties and disasters, pollution patrols and responses, homeland security. One of the missions that we're doing to support homeland security, interestingly enough, is food service, or as we call it, culinary assistance. In fact, one of our people just got back from the New Orleans area, supporting an operation going on down there by cooking and so on for homeland security on the border. And there's some continuing ongoing missions on the border that we really can't speak specifically about, but our people are down there and they're doing that without pay. Recreational boating safety, probably the biggest single mission we have, and that involves our public education, our vessel safety inspections, visiting various vendors and partners to provide literature, doing these public outreaches that we do. And any time that we're on the water or any time that we're in uniform and we encounter a boater that's got a problem or a question, we want to provide that kind of service to them. So you can see we have a fairly large staff of officers and so on, but there's a lot to do and we can't get at it all. And we were kind of set back as you were by COVID. In fact, if it wasn't for the development of this virtual meeting softwares and so on, we really would have been up against it. But we, as probably you did too, very early in the process, mastered the use of this stuff so we could get together and communicate. We're about to have our very first in-person meeting very shortly coming up. So I remember just before our meeting in 2020, which would have been on the 11th of March, 2020, I spoke to our flotilla commander at the time. I was a newly appointed vice commander, and I said, you know, we don't have this meeting. God knows when we're going to meet again. Well, that was March 11th, 2020. That's the last in-person meeting we had. So we're kind of excited about getting back together. We have gotten together, obviously, for training and that kind of stuff. But in terms of having mass gatherings, this has only just come back on board with us. Anybody has any questions, please ask them. But we'll move on. Joining the Coast Guard, I'm not going to run through this whole thing. As I say, I'm going to make the slides available to everybody. But we are an organization of uniformed volunteers, and we take that mission very seriously. Membership is open to a citizen of the United States or a dual citizen who is, has a favorable approval and so on and so forth. The minimum age is 17 years old, 17 as in the military, requires parental consent, and there is no maximum age. Membership is predicated on a successful completion of the auxiliary enrollment paperwork and a receipt of a favorable personal security investigation. Individuals who hold a dual citizenship with the U.S. or another country may become members of the auxiliary. That is subject to rules and regulation. There's no specific physical standards that must be met to enroll in the Coast Guard, although auxiliaries are expected to undertake only activities that they are physically capable of completing safely and in accordance with our performance standards. So if you want to join, we'd love to have you. This is a rendering of our online recruiting page, and you can actually sign up for us online. You'll notice that I back up here. Notice I put the links here for the pages, so you can actually sign up for us online. And if they're doing their job, they will note the home address or any address of interest that the person has indicated, and they will try to steer you at least towards our division. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is get a hold of me and get a hold of our staff, and we'd love to talk to you about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And we have a website, which I'd ask you to please visit us. Also have a Facebook page, which is very active. And just a little quick thing about boating safety and so on and so forth. And again, why boating safety is so important to us. We have noticed an awful lot of more boats on the water over the last couple of years. And I think it's because it was one way of getting away from the stress and strain of all the lockdowns and all the restrictions on our activities, which we're happy to see people on the water. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of incidents occur, and we're seeing many people not wearing a life jacket and also just acting somewhat irresponsibly and so on. So we're just very excited this year to get back to work. We've run a number of boating safety classes. We've had to do them virtually and so on, but it does qualify people. You may have seen back in the the earlier slides, Brianna's law, which is a law that says all motorboat operators in New York State, depending upon their age, what year and so on, but all regardless of their age, have to have a valid boating safety certificate issued by a valid authority, and that has to happen by the year 2025. So, if you got questions about that, we can certainly answer them. But as far as the accidents go, they indicated there was a huge surge of 25% more accidents during the COVID pandemic, and I mean that's phenomenal. Over 5,000 boating accidents occur yearly, and lack of boating safety education, the Coast Guard believe, accounts for 77% of the fatal accidents. 77% of the fatal accidents, because people don't know what they're doing when they go out in the water. Alcohol, leading contributing factor. I don't think that's any guess to or any surprise to us. 86% of the drowning victims were not wearing a life jacket. That's really quite startling. Also, only 11.6% of the adults and 65% of the kids currently wear a life jacket. Now that's an average based on studies and so on and so forth. I wouldn't necessarily take that number to the bank, but it is a fairly small number. And it only takes a fraction of a second to put one on. But if something happens, you have a collision with your boat or something like that, it's about akin to trying to put on your seatbelt as you're crashing into another vehicle in your motor vehicle. Majority of the boating accidents take place in calm waters. Propeller accidents 44% up. Boating fatalities surged 25.1% during the COVID pandemic. This is the Coast Guard's statistics where they indicate number of accidents and so on. I'm not going to go through that, but these statistics are available. There's a link on this page here that you can go to it and download it. It's quite startling. This is why we are so dedicated and so, how shall we say, frustrated about some of the things that we see out in the water. But that's our mission. That's what we're here for. And whether we can go on the water or not, we can still reach people. And that's the important thing. Even if you walk around a marina and talk to boaters that are willing to talk to you. Most of them have never had a vessel safety check. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, Ben, I think be a good time to stop sharing the screen so that we can open it up to questions at your discretion.
And we're done. Not bad.
I have
21 minutes.
Okay. Could you stop sharing screen? I think you are.
There we go.
Okay, good. And let's go into multi-view so I can see everybody, okay? Ken, do you control that or do I?
Visual
Bill?
control.
Okay, thanks. Bill, why don't you, your first question, okay?
thanks. Very nice presentation. Thanks a lot, Ben, for filling us in. You're located at the extreme south of the lake. And the lake is what, 45 miles long?
It's about 39 miles long.
And so are there other auxiliaries up on the other the north end of the lake? That's a terrible distance to have to cover.
It is. And we've had to respond to calls up there, cases up there, and it takes us, sometimes 2 or 3 hours to get there. And no, we are the only Coast Guard auxiliary unit stationed on this lake. Now, Flotilla 214, which is based in Brewerton, one of their members keeps his boat on the lake, but he's not officially assigned here, but he has been running some patrols. So we're delighted to have another boat here. And you're absolutely right, sir. It's a long ways to go. We work very closely with the other emergency agencies. In fact, Tompkins County was working, and hopefully again, we'll start up again, was working on the Department of Emergency Response was working on a Marine task force. And I can tell you that's already paid us off because we've developed contacts with the other agencies. And I've utilized just the contact list. I'll get a phone call and say, such and such happened. And well, I can't get a boat on the water for 2 hours. So I'll contact either the Tompkins County Center. I'll contact one of the email list and say, hey, who can respond to this? And as a result, I've had state police responses. I've had law enforcement responses. I had a local marina that says, hey, I can tow that boat out there, and he says, I won't charge him. So it's a thing where we need to continue work on our Marine task force so that we can integrate all these fire departments and so on, because they've all got good capabilities. Lansing, Binghamton, or excuse me, Ithaca, and so on. So you're right, Doctor. It's a long way to go.
So
Thank
Ben,
you
yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mark.
I had a question about the status of the building and your longevity there. There's been a lot of press in Ithaca about development along the inlet. And I saw one of the plans, and it seemed to include a new and improved version of the auxiliary, and other plans that looks like you guys aren't there. Could you give us a brief overview of what's going on to the inlet in regards to the Coast Guard auxiliary?
Well, that's a great question, and of course I can only speak to what I know. But we have followed that situation very closely, and the commercial and the city commercial development people have been very open about the information, and they've had a number of public online interactions and so on. So they've kept people informed pretty well. I got to give them credit for that. Anybody's guess. Now, the building that we're in is owned by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Our conversations with them is they consider that an important asset to them because of obviously flood control situations and so on. If they need to mobilize people down there, they know that they've always got a building where we would cooperate with them and so on. But, in the long run, what's going to happen, your guess is as good as mine. It appears that if the proposals, certain proposals are accepted, that we may not have a place to live, which of course, obviously that's a situation that many of our fellow flotillas face. And, you have to try to find a place to store your boat and your equipment and place to meet. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement on it. Obviously, the economy hasn't probably helped people too much, but again, your guess is as good as mine. We could be gone. We might be there for another 30 years.
Peter.
If a craft is in trouble in serious weather, a bad thunderstorm front on the lake, who goes out to do the rescues? Are you involved in that?
That's a great question. The first thing that the people should do is hopefully, if they would have a marine radio on board the vessel, that they would send out a distress call. Obviously the term Mayday is only used in extreme cases of potential loss of life, but there are other commands that can be used that will get people's attention and so on. Yeah. Obviously, the other part of it will be
channel 16.
Well, all mariners monitor it. The Coast Guard monitors it when we're open, when we're near a radio. Obviously, the auxiliary. Many of the I would assume that I know Tompkins County monitors it at their 911 center, and any mariner would be monitoring it and so on, and we obviously would too. And we have members that have radios at home that not much goes on in the lake that they don't know about. So we would, and of course the use of channel 16, the use of marine radios is something that's all basic mariner skills and the responsibilities that they would follow. Obviously we've always because we have a SOP for our people too to follow in terms of what happens if you got a hazard to navigation, et cetera. We always tell people if it's a danger to life and limb, call 911 first. And cell service is fairly good, but again, the marine radio is certainly not to be discounted. And typically, if it gets through to the 911 center, they'll be in touch with, depending on where it is, maybe City of Ithaca, maybe Town of Lansing Fire Department. Depends on where they are. Now, obviously, we're only about halfway up the lake and we're in Cuyahoga County. And that's the kind of a situation. That's why one of our members from the divisional level was also involved at Cuyahoga County Emergency Services, and he was a member of that task force that we put together. So, trying to bring some of the, bring the Cuyahoga County people in too. So it's got to be a cooperative effort. Say again,
Bill
Ken?
Klepak's in. Got Bill Klepak with a question here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I've been intrigued at the shift that's occurred with motorcraft over the years. And I understand that pontoon boats are the biggest selling boat currently and so on. And then one is also impressed at those very noisy, very high speed, so-called cigarette boats.
Yes.
I'm curious how you see what you've seen in real life in terms of events in different classes of boats.
Well, the price has sure gone up, but the technology is tremendous, in terms of electronics and navionics and so on that on board these boats, and they also go a lot faster. They got more powerful engines. I mean, so they have capabilities of really getting into trouble, and I think that's where training and vessel safety inspections really are important. The kind of things that we do and other agencies do to make sure that, number one, the people are trained in the basics on understanding safety, and we will encourage them to, obviously, if they're not 100% familiar with their own boat, get to your dealer, get someplace where you can get training. All this stuff, yes, indeed, it has advanced, at light speed, and particularly over the last few years. Right now, boats are so scarce. Talking to our marina friends and so on, they can't get them. I think I'm trying to think the boat in particular. I almost think it might have been pontoons. He said there was a 2-year lead time on them. That's just incredible.
Are there some types of accidents or mishaps that are quite peculiar for pontoon boats as opposed to a standard open watercraft or?
Well, I haven't seen them identified necessarily as a type in the Coast Guard stats yet. Obviously, with an open cockpit and so on, man overboard situations, are definitely going to be a problem, and people have got to wear their personal flotation device. And the other part of it too is there's new federal legislation that was passed with regard to what they would call used to call kill switches, and basically that's a lanyard that goes from the operator to the ignition switch on a boat, and if he or she is displaced from their operating position, thrown overboard or whatever, it's going to shut the motor off, because you saw that 44% of fatalities involved propeller injuries were up 44%. Well, propeller injuries happens either A, when somebody's not paying attention, they run over somebody, or somebody gets thrown into the water.
Yeah.
And so the kill switches are critical. Now, it's not a matter of law, criminal or civil law in New York State. It's an advisory, but in states like New Jersey and Pennsylvania and some of the other neighboring states, they can actually write you a $350 ticket for that. So
could I make one comment on that?
Sure, Ken.
On this topic? Yeah, I'm sitting on an island in the middle of the Thousand Islands, just upstream of the Alexandria Bay area.
Yeah, I know it well.
And in any case, the biggest problem I've seen with this type of boat is the fact that they are like a sailboat without a rudder and without a keel. And the wind and waves cause pontoon boats more problems than any of the other boats. So they're very hard to manage. And the last thing I would do is wear a kill switch if I were the only person on a pontoon boat. And because being able to move around quickly is an accident avoidance problem.
Very good point.
I've
Very
got
good.
a kill switch story for you. I'm spent 20 years as a rowing referee. And at one point I was the referee in a little runabout. We hit a wave that the person operating the motor got thrown overboard. It was an outboard. The outboard is at full speed. It flicks at right angles to the boat. And the boat is going round and round in circles over the driver. And I'm sort of flat in the boat because I got knocked over. And he didn't have a kill switch. He had one, but it wasn't connected. I leapt for the outboard, threw it into reverse, and of course that stopped the boat, but that was a close one. And I thereafter, I refused to go out in any runabout unless the driver actually has and uses a kill switch. And what was amazing was the number of boats where the kill switches were, the cord was totally missing. That is an absolutely lethal situation. So I'm glad to hear you. This is the sort of thing I think one needs to pay attention to with these outboard motors, that they should all have this kill switch.
That's a great story. That's a scary story. You'll note that the law says that anything built after 2020 has to have the kill switch. It's required.
Having the kill switch is one thing. Getting the operator to use it is the other thing.
Therein lies the problem, because the boat can be operated without them, hooking up the kill switches. That's correct. Absolutely.
It would be neat if there was some way, like you have to wear your seatbelt in the car, otherwise the car won't start, that you have to be detected as wearing the kill switch, otherwise the motor won't start.
It's not a bad thought. Where did you do your rowing refereeing?
Mainly at Saratoga Springs on the Fish, but all over New York State, and some down as far as Maryland, Virginia, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Boston, etc.
Very interesting.
All over.
I rowed for Syracuse in the 1970s for 4 years, so maybe our paths crossed. I have to do full disclosure with my friend, the coach over at Cornell, because he supports us and so on. We lets us store our docks there. So I says, no hard feelings, but we used to curse you guys all the time.
Yeah, my son was the Commodore of equals captain of Cornell crew in 2002.
Outstanding. Yeah, very great tradition.
Right.
And a big tradition with us too, because some of our rolling songs, the ones that we don't sing in public, actually mention Cornell by name.
All right. Well, hey,
So
thank you.
we're 10 after, so maybe we're considering it one last question and we'll call it a wrap. All right. Bill?
No, I was saying it's the president's call, huh?
I'm sorry.
That's fine. No. I'm enjoying it. I think we probably can wrap it up since nobody seems to have a question further.